In today's session, I am concluding the topic sexual reproduction in flowering plants. In previous few sessions, I have completed parts of typical flower, androecium, gynoecium, their functioning to produce microspores by microsporogenesis, production of ovule during megasporogenesis. As both microspores and megaspores are non-motile, they have to reach to each other. So the process called pollination, it may be autogamy or allogamy, with the help of agents or without help of agents. Further, we already completed the pollen-pistil interaction, where the stigma will choose compatible and viable pollen grains, and pollen grain who is compatible germinate, gives pollen dew to carry generative nucleus, which will divide into two male gametes. And the next event is double fertilization, syngamy, giving diploid zygote, which is going to form an embryo, and another male gamete fuses with the polar nuclei of central cell. This we call triple fusion, forming primary endosperm nucleus, which in turn divides to form a nourishing mass known as endosperm. At the end of double fertilization, endosperm start developing. Zygote attached to the endosperm start undergoing embryonic development, which follows continuous cell division, giving 2-celled, 8-celled, 16-celled suspensor stage, then globular stage of embryo, then the heart-shaped embryo, and when the embryo matures, a dicot embryo and monocot embryo with little difference going to form a seed. And after formation of a seed, a mature ripened ovary we call fruit. Fruit developed from an ovary is true fruit. Sometimes ovary fails to develop into fruit, then it is known as false fruit. And there are some fruits which will develop without fertilization, we call them as parthenocarpic fruits. The seed represents embryonic stage. Remain in dormant stage. It is a phase of inactivity. Till favorable condition commence, the seed will remain in dormant stage. Without seed, further germination of new plants is not possible. It is the main source of nourishment for most of the organisms on this earth. The seed, which is the main primary source for agriculture. After discussing significance of the seed, let me explain some concepts which purposely I left in between. As I told you, cross-pollination always produces variations, and variations are necessary for natural selection, and this natural selection play key role in the evolutionary process. So, most of the plants, to bring about cross-pollination or allogamy, they develop some outbreeding devices. So, what exactly outbreeding devices are? To discourage autogamy and to encourage allogamy, the plant itself develops some devices, and these are called outbreeding devices. First device, as the flower is bisexual, but the maturation time differs. I already discussed in earlier part, but under outbreeding devices, I need to explain again. This condition is known as dichogamy. Either androecium matures first, it is protandry, or gynoecium matures first, it is known as protogyny. So first condition is dichogamy. Second outbreeding device is unisexuality. The plant either produces staminate flowers or produce pistillate flowers, so there is no option, they have to go for cross pollination. Third outbreeding device is hercogamy, means the barrier develops between androecium and gynoecium so that their own pollen grains will not deposit on their own stigma. This is further classified as heteroanthy or heterostyle. The fourth outbreeding device, self-incompatibility or sterility. Here, stigma, if it receives their own pollen grains, they will not allow that pollen grain to germinate. In other words, pollen grain, if it deposits on the stigma, it will not germinate at all. So, you can make a list of outbreeding devices: unisexuality, dichogamy, it is protandry and protogyny, hercogamy, heteroanthy and heterostyle, and self-sterility or incompatibility. The question repeatedly asked in previous board exams. So you need to define outbreeding devices and then you make a list of it. This is one concept. Second concept is artificial hybridization. As we already know, to bring about the hybrid vigors for human welfare, the scientists are always trying their level best. They are doing lots of research. So, the outcome of this research that now we can store the pollen grains in pollen bank. So, desired pollen grains we can collect. We can keep them in liquid nitrogen under minus 196 degrees Celsius. So these pollen grains can be stored for longer duration. So these desired pollen grains we can use for dusting them on a mature stigma of our own choice. So here human is interfering in the process of pollination to achieve the required variety. This we call artificial hybridization. So under artificial hybridization, two varieties are brought together to bring about desired variety. There are some techniques which are introduced under artificial hybridization are emasculation. Now in this emasculation, the flower is bisexual. Both androecium and gynoecium matures at the same time, means homogamous condition. So in this condition, when the flower is in bud condition, that time we can remove the anthers. So removal of anthers before its dehiscence from a bisexual flower in bud condition is known as emasculation. So this prevents autogamy or self-pollination. Now emasculated flowers we need to cover so that unwanted pollen grains will not deposit on the stigma. So covering the emasculated flower using plastic bag is known as bagging. So emasculation is the first step in artificial hybridization, followed by bagging. Already I told you pollen grains of desired variety are stored. So when the stigma matures, we can remove the bag and we can dust these stored pollen grains. Allow that pollen grains to germinate. So here the events has to be listed with a particular date. So there is a tag attached to this plant who is under experimental purpose. It is known as tagging. So under artificial hybridization, emasculation, bagging, dusting of the desired pollen grains and tagging. These are 4 techniques. So the question will be asked, what is artificial hybridization and what are the steps involved in it? This is the answer. Coming to the last concept. There are some seeds in family Gramineae or Poaceae without undergoing fertilization, they start developing into seeds. So development of seed without fertilization. So they mimic sexual reproduction. They retain diploidy stage. and this phenomena is known as apomixis, and such seeds are known as apomictic seeds. Now there are seeds in citrus plants and the seeds of mango. If you remove the seed pod, you can see more than 2 embryos inside. This condition is known as polyembryony. So, presence of more than 2 embryos in a seed is known as polyembryony. So, these two separate definitions you need to remember, apomixis and polyembryony. These two will have a vital role in the development of new crop plants, because hybrid seeds every time need to purchase. So farmers, they find difficulty in purchasing hybrid seeds every time. So if we achieve apomixis phenomena, no need to depend on hybrid vigors. So these apomictic seeds we can use for cultivation. In polyembryonic condition, multiple plantlets can be grown using desired seeds. So with this, I covered 3 sections. One is outbreeding devices, under second artificial hybridization, and third is polyembryony and apomixis. In terms of pollination, right, let me cover one more part. The plants are very clever. They know how to take help of animals for pollination. So, first condition, they will produce nice bright colors. Second condition, they will have nice fragrance. Visiting insects or animals are always rewarded. So, this reward is given in the form of nectar or in the form of pollen grains. Apart from that, there is a tallest flower, Amorphophilus. This flower will attract the insects. Allow that insect to enter at the base of the ovary where nourishing fluid is available. So, insect will feel that I can deposit my eggs here in a safe condition. So, here during this activity, flower gets pollinated and insect can lay the eggs. Not only this, these eggs undergo further development to give rise larvae. So here this we call mutualism, where the animal and the plant help each other to complete their life cycle. There is one more plant called orchid. In most of the orchids, nice attractive flowers are produced. So some flowers appear like female insect. So there is insect called bumblebee. So this bumblebee gets attracted towards the flower and gets fooled, because this flower is like a shape of the female bumblebee. So male bumblebee approaches the flower thinking that it is a female bumblebee and pseudo-copulates, means it releases the sperms on that flower. By this act, actual flower undergo pollination and the male flower is fooled here by the flowers. The bumblebee is fooled by the flowers. This we call sexual deceit. This we will be covering under ecology part, under population interactions. So every pollinating agent, like animals, is always rewarded by the plants. So with this I will conclude the entire topic, sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Thank you very much.